So it's clear that this is no easy feat. This is in fact war, a war that has multiple battlefronts. Do we talk about SDRs? Do we talk about debt cancellation, conditionalities, reform? What currency should we borrow in? The list is endless. Wherever we start, what is clear is that at the heart lies a power struggle. And as we push on these multiple and intersecting complex fronts, the global financial architecture must be not only reformed but destroyed. Jason Hickel calls it an apartheid of global economic governance. We must remember all the new manifestations of this core issue. From a feminist perspective, we know there is a new financialization wave which we may not have been in older debt struggles, but currently exist. We know how the World Bank is pushing what they call a cascade approach, which is insidiously privatizing all facets of life. We know that in this financialization, women continue to carry the greatest burden. As our states negotiate conditionalities, it leads to a shrinking of the role of the state in provisioning public services, which are so vital for women's lives. With private finance entering the fold, there's been a focus on a mega infrastructure development, and so the services that women use are left out. Services like maternal health care being seen as not profitable enough. And if there's an investment in them, user fees act as a huge barrier to their access. And so we must keep watch and fight back these new manifestations too. It is this skew of power that manifests in different ways to form all these battlefronts, but the themes remain really the same. The themes of exploitation, of extraction, of possession, and of oppression. And so I have many questions, and I hope these 3 days start to pick at them. And the good doctor began to pick at them very well. How do we build towards a transformative debt justice with those themes of exploitation, of extraction, of possession, and oppression underpinning Africa's relationship with the North? How do we talk about transformative debt justice without talking about reparations? The slave trade calculated at today's minimum wage in the US was an equivalent to a $97 trillion investment into a Northern Hemisphere economy. That's 222 million hours of free labor from 1619 to 1865. This figure doesn't even calculate the unrecognized labor of women. Women who did all the labor in slave homes to ensure that those slave communities were held up to provide this free labor. And our struggles must be rooted in a history that itself is a struggle because the current economic order pushes a narrative that is ahistorical, apolitical, and completely blind to a gender question in its framing. And we must constantly root back to history, to power questions, and within those to feminist analysis and alternatives to ensure rebalance. But I've also been wondering how we fight to have freedom to, and not just freedom from. And how does this seemingly small shift of framing, how and what we are fighting for look like? And from the women's movement, I wonder whether we must choose between equality or liberation. In a fight for the people on this continent, that fight must not be centered on just on the needs of our people, but on our aspirations, our dreams for ourselves, and the dreams for our children. And so as we fight for the aspirations for this continent, our fight must also be embedded in an ability to dream and to imagine. We sometimes lose that in what is becoming the industrialization of the space that we work in, writing proposals, coming to conferences, doing work plans. And we must go back to the political work of dreaming and imagination. And as we go into these next 3 days that are so exciting, I invite you to have the courage, the audacity to dream a little, to imagine a new world for all of us here on this continent. Lola Olufemi says imagination is the most powerful tool that the feminists have at our disposal, and we would like to invite you to share this tool with us. And I leave you with a reminder of the words of the great Sankara, who's one of my favorites. You cannot carry out fundamental change without a certain amount of madness. In this case, it comes from nonconformity, the courage to turn your back on the old formulas, the courage to invent the future. And I hope these 3 days begin to invest in a new future.
call for policies and practices that put people first. We call for policies and practices that put people first. You and I are the people who hold our governments to account.